Now, the mother of one of the 4 teenagers who drowned in a crash in Snowdonia is calling for tighter rules for new drivers.
Well, the incredibly brave Crystal Owen was left broken after her son Harvey was found in an overturned, partially submerged car in Gwynedd in November last year.
We're now joined by Crystal alongside campaigns manager at the road safety charity Break, Lucy Straker. Crystal, first up, really appreciate you being here. Incredibly painful time, but as with so many amazing people who go through something like this, you've decided to turn your attention to changing the law for good in memory of your son. Can you tell us a little bit about that campaign?
Yeah, so the day after the crash, I found out about the graduated licence or progressive driving licensing system, and it was just a light bulb moment. I mean, I hadn't even thought about road safety or anything leading up to what happened. Harvey, as far as we knew, didn't have any friends who drove. He told me an elaborate set of, a story of what leading up to how he got there. And so I just thought, well, this just makes perfect sense. I hadn't even got to the stage of thinking about Harvey driving because he hadn't had any lessons or... So I just couldn't believe. And it's hard to get across in the short time we have on TV to explain the full details of how this works and has been proven to work, but it's an absolute no-brainer. Everybody thinks it won't affect them, and it does.
And Crystal, you're obviously a very responsible parent. As you said, your son was telling you, elaborate sort of lies as to
well, I
where
mean,
he was
I actually
going.
had evidence of where he was the first night, and that was where he said he was going to a friend's granddad's house. It was obviously the second night. I had no idea. He hadn't packed for camping. He wasn't prepared for it. He sent me a photo from that morning before he set off of where he was. And so, yeah, it just angers me that as parents we have no control, really, because we need this law to enforce.
Sure. Telling
teenagers something is not enough.
Yeah, because parents can't be there all the time, can they, Lucy? And, of course, especially at that age, they're entering into adulthood. So it's on other law enforcers, perhaps, to step in if this law were to be brought in. Can you just explain what the difference in legislation would be that you're calling for?
What we're calling for is, instead of... because we know that there's 6% of licence holders aged between 17 and 24, but 18% of people who are killed in car crashes are in that same bracket. So they're disproportionately represented in those road crash statistics. So we know that that's the issue. We know one of the main reasons is because kind of as your brain develops, when you get up to 25, you're more overconfident, you're more likely to take risks. We all at that age group. And then you couple that with kind of like the inexperience of only just passing your test and being in a vehicle which is has the ability to kill. You put all that together, and there's no wonder that these things happen. So if you put in some safeguards, we know that's going to happen. Let's put some safeguards in. The progressive licensing system brings them through that stage in a more kind of secure learning environment to stop that from happening.
I can't, and I'm not just saying this. I'm completely with you both. I've got one girl who just passed, and another one who's testing, and I would talk about younger people, and I'd talk about older people. I think it is easy to pass your test. You've never been on a motorway. You're suddenly in this thing that you quite rightly say can kill. And maybe this idea, I can't see anything that isn't beneficial. And also, the elderly generation. I literally had a battle getting my dad to give up driving, but he was a menace. And I do think that both ends of the scale should be looked at, and I think it's an absolute
really
must
outdated.
from
I mean, the age of driving was decided 100 years ago, and look how more powerful cars are now, and
they've
how many young
changed
people.
cars. They're so fast and so and I mean, there's electric, and you can drive. It's ridiculous.
And they say it's like an impingement on their freedom. However, the age group that are more likely to crash are young people, and they are more likely to pass their test early on. And a driving test in itself is there to protect people, and so before a driving test you're not even allowed to drive, and then you pass your test, and the idea is to keep them safe.
I've got a response for you from the Department of Transport. I'd love your response to this. Every death on our roads is a tragedy, and our thoughts remain with Harvey Owen's family. We continue to work tirelessly to improve road safety. We've commissioned research designed to help learner and newly qualified drivers improve their skills and safety, whilst our Think campaign is specially targeted at young drivers.
How have the government responded to your campaign? Have they wanted to work with you, or have they said that legislation already exists or other campaigns work just fine?
So sadly, they state it's a tragedy. It's preventable tragedies. Many of these deaths are. They've done this research, which has actually been ready since 2022 and still hasn't been published. However, I don't understand what they think this research is going to do. There's 30 years worth of research from other countries, from top psychologists, road experts, that have proven education is not enough. I've spoke to countless families, some families that have even spoke to their children after Harvey and the boys crash, and they have still gone on to crash and die. Education is not enough.
Particularly when there's that social pressure at that age. You know, I remember the first person to learn to pass their test at our school. I still have never taken a test because I am terrified of driving and the responsibility of somebody else's lives. But that social pressure, I think, supersedes anything that parents can say.
Absolutely. Alice was like, they all want the lift straight.
Everybody
straight away
wants.
She did a test.
So it has to be enforceable. And even if it was law, I'm sure a lot of young people would break it.
Lucy, am I right in saying this has happened in New Zealand and there's 23% decrease in accidents, fatal accidents as a result of it?
Yeah, so New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and some parts of the US.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Well, that's what we think, and we think, you know, like one of the things would be kind of restricting the number of peer-age passengers so that you can't have that group in the car. Another one would be kind of like nighttime driving, because a lot of these crashes happen kind of during the night on rural roads. You know, it's dark, it's wet, there's a car full of... It's those kind of situations that generally happen. So if we know that, so let's try and safeguard against that.
How can we make this happen? You've got a signature, a petition with 18,000. We need to get to 1,000. I totally support it.
Yeah, the problem is with the petition is most of the signatures have all come from the Shrewsbury Telford area because of it's affected there. So we need to get it out there further afield. And I think some of the things that are stopping people signing the petition is misunderstanding it. So I think some people think they're not allowed to take passengers up until 25. That's not the case. It's under that age because of the brain development. They for the first 12 months it is. So, and it is just peer age passengers, so they're allowed to take their mum or their auntie or their dad. They're allowed to take their own child if they chose to. They could take their own children. If they're a young parent, there could be exemptions. Same as for the nighttime driving in other countries, they've worked around the issues that the government keep bringing up. You know, in terms of economic impact and stuff. There's only, as Lucy would tell you, the percentage of...
So, yeah, only 13% of people in that age group actually drive for work between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. So when they say that, you know, we don't want to kind of impinge on their freedom and their ability to work, it's only a 13%, whereas 18% of those who are dying are in that age group.
Will you do me a favour? I'm going to share that on my social media. I see this as a no-brainer, Nick. I don't even understand. And by the way, I won't find the right words. I never have in 20 years of doing this. You're amazing, and I'm sorry for the wrong words, but I couldn't even be sat there if I was you, and I might take my hat off to you.
Lots of people say that, but at the end of the day, I'm not brave, and I'm not, you know, I'm doing this because Harvey would be here if this law was in place. So, and I've got other children. I don't want them to get to this age and be worrying. You know, of all the things I've worried about Harvey, this was not one of them because I didn't think it affected me. And the amount of parents that have reached out and said my child said they were going to the shop, or all it takes is them to get into a car and they have literally got a lethal weapon at their hands. Somebody can have it, at the moment there's no minimal lesson, so that somebody could have, say, 5 lessons, for example. They can get in a car at the age of 17, fresh out of school, basically, and fill a car, and they are responsible. And it's not like we're trying to punish them, we're just trying to... They are responsible for other people's lives, so we're just trying to get them to have the experience on road conditions as well. This is the thing, that people are not getting the experience, the varied experience on road conditions in the dark, on wet roads.
Will you share that stuff for me, and I'll definitely share that.
And can people just Google it, basically?
Yeah,
they can search
a quicker way to find the petition is young driver petition, and it will come up as the
young driver petition.
We'll both share it on our personal social media. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. You've been wonderful guests. Thank you, Crystal Owen and Lucy Straker from Break.